He woke up from a deep sleep. The sky in Europe has collapsed again. The US and Russia are on the phone again. Russia and the US seem to be in sync now. Although Europe and Ukraine are back on the table. This time, it seems the US has been played by Russia as the gambler made a request to the emperor. In front of him, he asked for a way out for the Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk. The emperor expressed his support. However, there was a small condition. He said the Ukrainian army must surrender first. When the gambler said Ukraine was willing to cease fire for 30 days, the emperor immediately agreed. But this was limited to not attacking energy and infrastructure targets. Isn't this just a fantasy for the gambler? For 30 days, they won't attack energy infrastructure. So, he can attack everything else. Moreover, Zelensky now understands. The gambler wants emotional value. He doesn't care about substantive issues. What matters is whether he can announce to the media that he resolved an issue. So, Zelensky started to play along. He nodded at whatever the gambler said. He agreed verbally. But that doesn't mean he will actually fulfill the emperor's mining agreement. It still hasn't been signed. The emperor is the same. If they want a ceasefire, what does it matter? The battlefield will remain the same. If they want to protect the Ukrainian army, that's fine. As long as they all surrender. Isn't this just painting a picture for the gambler? The gambler can announce to voters that he resolved an issue. In reality, the emperor conceded nothing. Why? The gambler urgently needs to reach a so-called peace agreement with the emperor. The answer is simple. His true enemy is not Russia. It's not China. But the entrenched deep state within the US. What is the deep state? Simply put, it consists of those who are not influenced by elections, but can control the functioning of the US for a long time. They have several characteristics. First, they are extremely stable. Presidents come and go. Yet they maintain power. Second, their network of interests is vast. From government officials to the military-industrial complex. From Wall Street to intelligence agencies. They have formed a huge network of interests. Third, they need enemies. Without enemies, there's no military budget. No intelligence budget. No arms orders. So they wish for the Russian conflict to continue indefinitely. Moreover, China and Russia are merely strategic rivals. The deep state truly wants the gambler's demise after the gambler faced issues last year. The shooter was revealed. He appeared in a promotional event for Wall Street giant BlackRock 2 years ago. Was that a coincidence? It seems unlikely. The gambler came to settle scores. He pushed for major layoffs at the Government Efficiency Department. He cut the Pentagon's budget. These measures directly threatened the deep state's interests. So now, the gambler needs to focus on internal enemies, instead of continuing to expend energy on the Russia-Ukraine issue. However, the US certainly won't easily let go of Russia. Why? Because the US-Soviet rivalry has supported a massive interest group. They must rely on Russia to survive. They can even influence US policy. Clinton once admitted. Only he and the entire US government wanted to improve relations with Russia. But Texas energy tycoons see Russia as a competitor. The Pentagon fears that without the threat from Russia, how can they request military budgets? Intelligence executives are experts on Soviet issues from the Cold War. What will they do? In arms, they see Russia as a thorn in their side. These individuals in the US are known as neoconservatives. Their influence remains significant. They must create a strong external threat for the US to profit from it. Just like in the late Ming dynasty. They are all opportunists. In the US strategy to control Europe, Russia plays the role of the imaginary enemy. After World War II, the Marshall Plan provided funds and materials to Europe. But American money was repaid with sovereignty. Through NATO, America firmly held Europe in its grasp. However, Russia is an important energy supplier for Europe. Its prices are much lower than those of the US. To sever ties with Russia, the US even funded extreme environmental groups in Europe, forcing Europe to abandon nuclear power and energy cooperation with Russia, turning to purchase expensive American energy. If Russia and Europe rebuild ties, the US presence in Europe would become redundant. Today, the emperor sees through all this. During the call with the gambler, he appeared to cooperate fully. In reality, it was all for show. Throughout the conversation, it seemed he agreed to everything. But he actually agreed to nothing. However, Russia knows the US has not relinquished its hegemony. For example, the gamblers' recent actions may seem chaotic, but they are meant to consolidate US maritime hegemony. Western hegemony is built upon US naval, air, and land power. Europe has already lost the Nord Stream pipeline. European countries now rely on expensive American energy. But now, the gambler is further cutting off Europe's lifeline in the Red Sea. The strategic intent behind America's control of the Panama Canal is also clear. China can build the China-Europe Railway on the Eurasian continent. However, trade with the Americas still relies on maritime routes and the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was sold to BlackRock. This will make it more difficult for Eastern ships to operate. There is a common point behind these actions. Understanding King. Clearly, the US is less involved in global affairs. This wants to ensure the US continues to benefit from global trade. This requires control over key nodes, forcing other countries to play by American rules. The US has the largest military-industrial complex in the world. It also has the most corrupt military spending system. The Pentagon often purchases military supplies at outrageous prices. From $10 screws priced at $90,000 to coffee cups priced at $1,200. This is no longer a secret. This corruption is not just a waste of taxpayer money. It also leads to a decline in the actual combat effectiveness of the US military. Carrier groups can barely maintain 4 F-22 production lines, which have already been dismantled. Even the latest F-35s rely on Eastern rare earth materials and parts. The problem with the US military, it's not a lack of money. It's that the money isn't being used effectively. A large amount of funding flows into the pockets of military giants, instead of enhancing actual combat capability. After understanding King came to power, he realized this problem. He demanded the Pentagon cut its budget by 8% each year. Over the next 5 years, he plans to cut $300 billion in total. This threatens the core interests of the deep state, so they are eager to bring him down. Understanding King invited the emperor to join forces in the Middle East. Even dividing the cake also means sharing responsibilities. For the emperor, the Russia-Ukraine war has been ongoing for 3 years. The costs are enormous. Europe is still forming a coalition. The situation in Ukraine is precarious. For understanding King, he needs to free up resources to address America's survival. Both sides have their own needs. Cooperation is a short-term tactical choice. The first Russian military cooperation with understanding King threatens the deep state of the US, especially military giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. These are direct competitors of BlackRock's investment targets. For understanding King, to secure external peace, internal stability must come first. On the surface, it appears to be a joint effort with Russia to divide Ukraine. In reality, it aims to reclaim America's leadership from the deep state. The restart of US-Russia relations is a diplomatic approach initiated by understanding King. The goal is to build a strong image, to consolidate his governing position. The US wants to reduce its responsibility for maintaining global order, but is unwilling to give up the benefits of hegemony. It wants to enjoy the sweetness of imperialism, while wielding the stick of hegemony. This reveals the unmasked nature of hegemony. Finally, likes. Follow the little tavern strategy. Unraveling secrets to help you see through the clouds.